Hi there, I'm Eric Hansen, and today I'm going to be teaching you something super useful for your camp experience. Not! Before we get into the actual video, I do have a request. If you're enjoying our video series, please like and subscribe to the video and this channel here. Turn on those notifications so that you never miss a beat whenever we post something new. Having a good base of knowledge of a couple essential camp knots is really important. Not only can you tell amazing knot jokes, but it will come in handy all the time when you are camping, backpacking, climbing, doing life in general. So here today, I wanted to just break down two really easy knots. And for those of you who are super into knots, actually neither of these are true knots, they are actually hitches. But they will come in handy a lot as I use them pretty much all the time in camping. If you want to see these knots in action, check out my tip video on building a tarp shelter, and you can really see how these come into play out in the real world when you're camping and when you're needing to strap stuff down or something like that. So today I'm going to be talking about the Clove Hitch and my personal favorite, the Trucker's Hitch. Okay, let's talk about some knots. Let's get knotty. See, there's another knot joke. Amazing. And if you're looking to get hitched, hey, today we're going to be talking about that. Oh, let's keep them coming, folks. Okay, so first it's the Clove Hitch. This is a super great hitch that is very easy to tie, and it can be used to connect lots of things and is very simple to untie as well. So first of all, I use this in my tip video on building a tarp shelter for connecting a piece of cordage to a tarp that may or may not have a nice handy grommet. Kind of doesn't matter. I teach you how to connect this in a really simple way over there. So make sure you check out that video. But let's say you want to maybe connect a carabiner to a rope, or you want to connect it to something fixed like on your trailer or something like that. So let's just take a quick closer look. So I'm going to invite you to come a little bit closer here and actually get into the nitty-gritty of what we're doing. Okay, so let's get into it. I'm going to do two different demonstrations. I'm going to do one on some paracord, something that's a little thinner and what you might actually be using in the field. And then I'm going to use some climbing rope here as well, which might just give you a little bit better of a visual so that you can understand it a little bit more simply. Okay, so let's start with the Clove Hitch. It's really a very simple hitch to tie. All I'm doing is I'm just going to roll this over once, making just a little loop-de-loo, almost like a little roller coaster ride. Then I do the exact same thing, giving it that double loop. So now I have two loops here in the roller coaster. And then I have two options. One is just folding it on top of itself. This is actually not the complete hitch. You need to put them behind each other so that you're crossing them over and you're adding more friction to it. And as I demonstrated with my thumb, you can see that that is how that cinches down nice and tight. And now it is connected and is actually really strong. The tighter I pull, the more this is going to actually hold that hitch and give it friction and give it strength. Then by just simply pushing the line in or taking the tension away, it's really easy to take apart. Okay, so one more time there. I'm making a loop over. You can see how it's just a roller coaster loop that continues on. I'm doing the exact same movement again. So now I've got my ears. And then instead of just folding it over this way, because that actually doesn't do anything, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to fold it behind it, so I'm making that X, and you can see that it gets cinched down tight. So if we wanted to, let's say, connect this to something rigid, maybe this is on your trailer, or maybe it's around a tree branch or something like that, let's do it like this. This is if you have the ability to slide it around something, and then therefore this piece of wood is a little bit slippery, but it still grips that nicely. If you don't have the ability to, say, slide it around the end, you can still make it, crossing it over once, crossing it over, and then go underneath that, like that. That still creates the exact same hitch. So this is handy if this is totally closed off and you can't slide something around it. You can still tie that hitch. So let's look at that one more time. Okay, so I've got it. I've got my tree branch, I've got my trailer hitch, whatever it might be, and I'm just taking this, I'm going to drape the cordage or the rope over it. I'm going to make an X by looping it around one more time, bringing it up and through. And you can kind of see how that crosses over, creates that X. And now I've got my clove hitch. Beautiful. So that's handy for just connecting something, a rope to something fixed like this. Climbers and canyoneers use it all the time. I use this in canyoneering a lot. If I want to connect it to, let's say I want to connect it to a carabiner. Again, just looping this over twice, folding it behind itself, clipping that on. And now I've got an end here that is really handy to use for a lot of different things. Climbers use it all the time for a bunch of different purposes, but even something simple like this, even if it's not for climbing grade, I wouldn't, however, just as a caveat, I wouldn't use, if I connected this into an anchor, I wouldn't feel like this is a sufficient knot to then rappel off of, but there's a bunch of different reasons why a climber or somebody like that would want to use this hitch. So don't use this as your safety knot for either tying in a harness or rappelling off of. That's not what this is for. This is more for a utility purpose, not for like a rescue grade or a climbing grade knot. So just make sure that you know that. Let's take a look at this in a rope so we can get something a little bit thicker, maybe a little easier to visualize. Okay, one loop over, two loops over. I want to go behind, adding that extra friction in. And now, let's add it to the edge here. I've got something that as the further this gets tensioned, the more this is going to suck in on itself and create a tighter hitch. That's knot one, hitch one, the clove hitch. Super, super handy. So now let's talk about my personal favorite, the trucker's hitch. The trucker's hitch is a super handy hitch to know for many reasons, but it was named after, I'm assuming it was named after, its utility in tying down loads. So if you're tying something onto your car, a truck bed, whatever it might be, this is super useful. I use it all the time with also creating tension if I'm saying stringing up a tarp or maybe something tying out guy lines in my tent to an anchor point, to a rock, to a stake in the ground. This is a really handy thing to know. So I've quickly assembled a little thing to show you actually how it works. And this is going to be my stand-in tree. So pretend that this piece of wood here is your tree, or maybe it's the railing on your car or the car topper. Whatever it might be, this is going to be what we're going to actually use. And out of frame here, this way, this is the other thing that I'm trying to secure. Now maybe it's connected to a tarp or something like that, or maybe this is just how you're connecting the load on top of your car or truck bed. Okay, so the actual hitch here, I'm going to be creating an anchor point for this rope to come around to. So it's going to loop around my tree, and then it's going to be used to create tension back towards this direction. So it's really challenging to just tie a good knot here with a proper amount of tension. This will allow you to basically make a pulley that will really cinch things up nicely. Okay, so I've got my spot here that I want to create my anchor. I'm going to start by just making that same loop that I used in the clove hitch. All it is just a loop. Now I'm going to make a very simple knot just by rolling that over, folding it over itself, and grabbing that through and pulling that piece of cordage or rope through here. So it's really important that now that I roll it towards the tree, towards the thing that I'm wrapping it around, because no matter how much I pull, this will stay in place. However, if I were to wrap it back towards, say, the tarp, and now I go this way, that's going to cinch up on itself and really make this almost impossible to untie. So we don't want that. So make sure that you are tying it back in the direction towards whatever you're looping it around. So this now becomes my pulley point. I loop it around the tree, come back towards, fish my line through. I'm going to try not to pull too hard because my construction is not super strong. So now you can tell here that I'm actually able to put a good bit of pressure, and I can suck this in here and create that to be as strong as I really want it to be as tense and tight as I want it to be. So now I'm going to pinch this, and then I'm just going to take this, loop it around, and only pull a portion of this through. The reason why I only pull a portion of this through is that now this whole system is actually super easy to untie. So no matter how much tension is actually on this, all I need to do is pull on this end, that comes undone, this comes undone, and this simply pulls out. So even if this is under tremendous load, you're going to be able to untie it really simply. Okay, let's look at that one more time. You make that roll, that loop-de-loo, just simple little roll over there. Then I'm going to fold it back towards my tree this way, and then I'm going to put my fingers through and grab that and pull that back through. If I feel like I want to make this longer, I can make it as big as I want, but in general, I just want to keep that just to about an inch or two. Then I string this end around my anchor, around my tree, and fish the cordage through, and now I pull it back towards, and I can now put a pretty good amount of tension there, as much as I feel like, without being at risk of, for me, wrecking my little pole setup here, so I won't add too much tension. But now, what I'm going to do is pinch this point, so now this doesn't just slip back through and undo all of the tension that I added. By pinching that, it allows me to still work with this tail end. And now, as you can see, all that I do is, that's just a pinch there. Now I bring this up behind it. On the other side away from me I think is easier, but in theory it could be either end. And now I fold that back down, create a little tail that I then pull back towards my tarp that I'm trying to cinch. I'll pull a little bit extra through, but what I don't want to do is pull it all the way through. I want this tail, because this is going to be important in the untying process. So I'll leave a little bit less. And then just to secure things so it doesn't slip when the storm comes in or the wind is rattling, I'm just going to loop that tail over one more time, pull it back towards this direction, and that creates everything nice and tight. And now you have a beautiful trucker's hitch. Woo woo! You can tie down loads in your truck bed. You can do all sorts of things with this. If you want to see this in action, I use this very heavily in my video on tying down my tarp and setting up my tarp in making a tent out of a tarp. So there's a lot of ways to use it, but let's say now I'm packing up camp and it's time to take it all down. What I'm doing, the beauty of this is that no matter how much tension was actually on everything, it's really easy to untie. So now I've got this, I'm just taking this tail end, you can see this tail end, and I'm just gonna pull that back towards the tree, and this is essentially untied. And now I can just undo that, and the beauty of this is as I add a little bit of tension there, it just comes undone, and you've got a nice clean rope or bit of cordage once again. Okay, that's it. That's the trucker's hitch, that's the clove hitch. Those are two essential camping knots that I use all the time. There are some other great knots out there. The bowline is another really excellent knot as well, but I just want to keep things pretty simple and give you two of my favorites that I think are the most useful. What are your favorite knots? Any other differences of opinion out there? Please let me know, and also help me learn something. So if you're a camper who has a favorite that is not here, please let me know, and yeah, share this with your friends, because I think it's super helpful for people to know about this type of thing. Okay, if you like this video, please like it and then subscribe to our channel. We have loads of other tips and bits of information and entertainment to help you as you're living your best life ever. I'm Eric Hansen. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the trail.